All right, step one. First, you have to create your own AWS account and then set up the billing alerts. What this billing alert does is that it's going to notify you as soon as you exceed the budget so that you never go above budget or take action as soon as you go over the budget. Step two, you want to select your brand region. So you need to ensure that the region you select is somewhere in between where you and your friends live. So for example, if you and your friends live in the US, you select the US region. If you and your friends live in Asia, you select somewhere in Asia Pacific, etc. So for my case, it's in Singapore. Step three, you go to the EC2 management console. So you can do that by typing in EC2 on the search box here and then clicking on the EC2 service. Step three is setting up your security group. So you have to scroll down from the sidebar panel, scroll down to network and security, select security groups, and then we want to create two security groups. So the first one is the Zomboid server security group. So what this one will do is that it's going to open the required ports for Zomboid server hosting. So we want to set three inbound rules. So two of them will be UDP, and the last one will be TCP. So the port range is specified in the Project Zomboid wiki. If you scroll down to forwarding required ports, you can see all the numbers that you need to specify. So 8766 for the UDP one. So we paste that in. 16261 for the other UDP one. And then this IP range here, 16262 and 1672. And according to the documentation for build 41, you don't really have to specify that, but the reason why we're specifying it is just to be safe. For sources, you want to make sure that it's enabled anywhere. So we want to select anywhere IPv4. And then you want to essentially do the same thing for outbound rules. So create three rules for outbound rules, and then two UDP, one TCP, and you know the drill. So copying the same configuration over, and then you want to set the I guess the IP addresses to anywhere IPv4 as well. And then you just hit create security group. Awesome. So the second security group that we want to create is the SSH one. So we hit this create security group button again and then name it SSH connection. And what this one will do is that it's going to allow SSH access. And for the inbound rule, you just add one and then select SSH. For the source, you want to make sure that the source is selected to your IP address so that you're the only one who can access the server. And then we hit create again. Now that that's set up, we then have to create our own instance. So we can do that by clicking on this instances tab here and then pressing the launch instances button. And what this one will do is it's going to walk you through how to build one. For the AMI, we scroll down to the bottom here to Ubuntu 2004. Um, for the instance type, we want to scroll down to C4X large. And the reason why we want C4X large is because it meets the minimum requirements for hosting a dedicated server. So four cores, four vCPUs, and then at least 4 GB of RAM, plus some additional RAM for extra players, as well as high network performance. So we want to check this box. So C4X large. For the configuration details, we want to leave that as it is. But one thing to note is this, the public IP address. So whenever you stop and start your EC2 instance, the public IP address will change. So you need to make sure that you want to double check the IP address connection whenever you start your Zomboid server. So let's hit next. Storage, we leave it as it is, but an important thing here is that it's going to give you 8 GB of SSD storage. That should be enough to store all the map files within Project Zomboid. Add tags, we don't really need to add tags. Configure security group. So what we wanna do here is that we wanna select the existing security group, and if you created the security group from the beginning of this tutorial, you then select those two security groups that we created earlier, and then you just hit review and launch, and yeah, and then you just hit launch here, which will ask you to create a new key pair. So we don't have any key pairs yet, so we're just gonna select create new key pair and then give it a name. So I'm gonna call it Zomboid key pair. And then what this one will do is that it's gonna give you a .pem file. This .pem file is used for accessing your server. So essentially like a key to a door. And then we hit the launch instances and view instances. And what this one will do is that it's gonna start up your server. So we just have to wait until this is running and the status check is reporting healthy. Alright, so as soon as you see running, the instance state is running, and then the status check has passed, you can then SSH into that server. So there's different ways for each OS, but for my OS, it's I'm running this on MacBook, so I'm gonna be using MacBook commands. But feel free to Google how to connect to an EC2 instance if you're using things like Windows or Linux. The first thing you have to do whenever you download the .pem file is that you want to change the permissions of this, mainly because it has too much permissions. So you want to type in chmod 400 zomboid keypair.pem. And what this one will do is that it's gonna reduce it down to only read access for your user. You can then SSH into your server by typing in sh-i zomboid key pair, so or whatever key pair name you set, and then Ubuntu at and then your public IP address. So to get your public IP address, let's go back to the AWS console and then click on this guy here and then hit press the connect button here, and it's going to give you the public IP address. So we just copy this and then we paste it onto the terminal like so. It's going to ask you to I guess do a fingerprint, just type in yes, and then if everything works you should be logged in. So the next thing you want to do is install the Steam command line. So we're using the SteamCMD for Ubuntu. There's documentation on how to do that for Ubuntu. I'll link it in the description below. But I'll just, I guess, copy these commands and then paste it onto the terminal. You want to make sure that when you're pasting the commands in the terminal, you want to scroll down to Linux, packages from repositories, Ubuntu/Debian, and then go for the 64-bit instruction. As you're installing this Steam command line, it's gonna give you with the terms and conditions. How you get around this is by pressing Escape and then pressing the I agree button here. There we go. So as soon as that's installed, you just run the SteamCMD command. And what this one will do is that it's going to install the Steam client in your server as well as try to log you in. So it's going to show you the Steam CLI. So as soon as you see Steam on your terminal, you then try to log in anonymously. So you can do that by typing in login anonymous. Alright, so as soon as you logged in anonymously, you then go to the Project Zomboid wiki instructions and then copy this command. So this is the command that will download the Project Zomboid dedicated server files in your server. So let's just copy that. Don't worry about these SDL. That one doesn't really affect you that much. Alright, so as soon as it's finished downloading, you then quit out of the Steam client because we already finished what we needed for that. So as soon as you finish downloading the Zomboid dedicated files, the next thing you have to do is enable port forwarding. So the wiki tells you the different ports that you have to set up on your server. But how you do that is through this UFW command. So the first command you want to do is sudo UFW enable to enable the firewall, and then you then allow that first UDP port. So UFW allow 8766/UDP sudo UFW allow 16261/UDP, and then sudo UFW allow, and then the TCP port, so 16262, and then colon 16272/TCP, like so. And then you can review the security rules by typing in sudo UFW status verbose. And then your configuration should look something like this. And then the next thing that you want to do is just start your server. So if we type in ls-al, you could see the Steam folder. So you want to go to steam.steam/steam apps/common/project Zomboid dedicated server. You can autocomplete by just pressing tab on your terminal. And then inside this, you would see start server command. So you just run that by typing in /startserver.sh. And what this one will do is that it's going to start up the Project Zomboid server in your server here. It's going to ask you for an administrator password. Just keep it simple. I usually just type mine password. Mainly because my EC2 instance can only be accessed from my IP address, so I'm not too worried about anyone else trying to access it. Alright, so as soon as you see Zomboid server is in VAC secure, it means that the initialization process for your Zomboid server is already finished. So the next thing you want to do is start up your Project Zomboid game, and then hit join. And then here I already attempted to try to join a server. I'm just going to delete that and then restart the configuration. So your IP address, go back to your EC2 console here. It should be your public IP address here. So for me, it's 132.112.101.230. You just leave the port configuration as is, and then you create your own account. So I'll create mine silent and then set my password and press add. And then you just hit join. It's gonna report that it's not responding, but it should work as soon as you connect to it. And there you go. So now you can play your Zomboid game as normal. Cool. And there you go. Now you have your own dedicated Project Zomboid server. Whenever you finish playing with your server, make sure that you stop your server from your EC2 console. And the reason for this is you're charged by AWS per hour. So you need to make sure that your instance is stopped. So you can do that by clicking on, I guess, selecting your server and then hitting stop instance. Oh, and one last thing. So just to figure out how much your servers will cost, you have to go to this website called calculator.aws. Essentially, this is the pricing calculator for the services that you use. So let's press the create estimate button here. Let's type in EC2 here as the instance, the service, and then hit configure. And then we select the region that we launched our server into. Linux is the operating system. The name is c4.xlarge. This will give you pricing information. So we're currently getting charged around 20 cents per hour. Utilization, so feel free to tweak this, but for me, I generally spend around 16 hours per week in the worst case scenario playing Project Zomboid. You want to change this to on-demand instance, And then for the EBS block store, so it's just the default one, 30 gigabytes. And as you can see here, that my estimated cost is around $19 USD. So if you compare that with, I guess, some of these existing servers, existing server providers, the pricing for hosting a dedicated instance using AWS is a lot cheaper compared to having one of these dedicated instances. And also it performs a lot better, mainly because they have this speed restriction here. Yep, hopefully you enjoyed the video and I'll see you guys soon.